Welcome to the Adventures in Learning podcast. I am your host, Dr. Diane Jackson Schnorr, and I am so excited to welcome the Executive Director of Behind the Book, Anmarie Paul, to join us for a conversation that is going to be cozy, challenging, and inviting. Wonder, curiosity, connection. Where will your adventures take you? I'm Dr. Diane, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Adventures in Learning. Welcome. Anmarie, I'm so happy you're with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diane. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you and I first met doing another podcast where we talked about the power of belonging in children's literature. And I kind of wanted to just circle back to that for a moment because I thought you had so many wonderful things to say on that podcast. Can you talk just for a moment about why it's important for us to connect to children's literature and how that influences the work you do at Behind the Book?
Why it's important for us to, well, more than anything, literacy is the empowerment tool that we have as humans, right? It opens doors, unlocks possibilities. And that's just on the practical level, but internally, there's so much magic that literacy does for a human being, right? From reflection to creating wonder and joy. And as adults who are caretakers of young people, I think it's our duty, it's our divine responsibility to make sure young people understand this gift of literacy, understand the gift of what's in books. This is why parents read to their children at nighttime. So,
And one of the things I've come to realize recently as I've been thinking about it is that whole notion of reading aloud is a very radical act these days because it's a way of stopping the digital, of building in real time connection, and of saying no to scripted curriculum. That this is so important that we are going to stop our day and spend 10 minutes building these connections. And so it's funny, something that is so simple and such low-hanging fruit really does have a huge difference when you're building relationships with kids, whether you're a parent or a grandparent or a classroom teacher.
Agreed. I'm thinking about reading out loud. Funny story, I was talking to our director of programs yesterday, and there's a new Star Trek. I think I mentioned it in the podcast, so it's becoming kind of a theme here. So there's a new Star Trek called Starfleet Academy that's just talking about the building of a school and its youth development in space, right? So I'm super excited about it. So my director of programs, her husband is really into sci-fi, and I said, "Tell me what he thinks about this new series." And she was just telling me that her young boys, they're both under 5 years old, are really into Star Wars right now, and they have the chapter books at home, and they'll ask either her or her husband to read the books after they watch the movie. And these are long chapter books, and they'll demand it before bedtime. And they love when he reads it because he brings it alive and he does the voices and the explosions. And I had a program facilitator who I just love the way she would create read out louds in the classroom with her students. She would get into character. She would do it as if it were a play, and they would read. She would read the narration, and they would read as if they were the characters of the story. And these kids who were non-engaged before would just get so into it and do voices and accents. So yes, read out loud is magical. And I really do wish that there were more spaces that embraced it again.
Well, and what a cool way to model fluency and comprehension too. I mean, often we start with us being the reader and doing the voices and things, but I love the fact that that teacher took it the next step. So then it became a communal experience and a way for kids to express themselves, but they're also getting that practice of fluency as they're doing it. And, when you're embodying a character, you have to understand what it is you're reading to be able to do that well.
Right. That's right. And I remember that was a part of her practice. She would stop it and say, "Hey, is this person excited? Or are they confused? Think about what's happening right now at this moment, and now read for them."
Oh, that's so cool. So, behind the book, tell us a little bit about what it is you do and how you make an impact in New York City. You're celebrating 1 year of being the executive director. Give us sort of the summary and your hopes and dreams.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so Behind the Book is an amazing organization. I was actually working for a pretty big nonprofit at the time. When I learned about the position as director of programs at the time, this was over 3 years ago. And what really got me interested was the organization was thriving to find the recipe for really motivating young people to read, right? What is it? What's that secret recipe that gives kids not only like the joy of reading, but the stamina to make it from one one from one end of the book to the other. And so that really got me, and we were thinking about intrinsic motivation as not only a pedagogy, but also an evaluation tool. And just that thought alone excited me. So intrinsic motivation is the psychological, it comes from the developmental psychology. Word is it's failing me. It's a developmental psychology principle, and the theory is if you create a conditions in any human being's life where they in any human being's life where they feel autonomous, they feel related, and they feel belonging, which is the topic of our podcast, and they feel competence, right? So skill building, a sense of know-how, they will thrive, they will do their best, and they will feel the most motivated, right? And so that's what we try to create in our classrooms with books, with students. So young people get to choose the books they want to read, and the books are filled with characters that they can relate to from neighborhoods they can relate to, written by authors they can relate to. So that is at the entry point to that sense of belonging. So they're choosing this experience. And then we do a lot of team building and discussion within the class and within the group itself to create that sense of belonging. And the competency piece that we're looking for, again, back to the autonomy, there are lots of choices throughout the program itself. But the competency building piece is that we lean into the things that young people know, right? So that program that I just mentioned, where the facilitator would do an acting kind of assignment with the book. One of the assignments there was the art assignment was creating a podcast playlist that was about a coming up that reflected your coming of age experience. And we were reading 10 Mile River, which is about a turn of life experience moving from childhood to adulthood. And so the young people picked Spotify playlists that just that reflected what of songs that reminded them of moments of those changes. And then they designed the covers themselves, right? So we lean into what the young people know, and then we're giving them assignments to like craft and create. So even if as we're asking them to do this art, we're asking them to do this writing piece, we're leaning into their competency piece, and then we're leading into their competency, right? Things that they already know, and then challenging them to build skills to create something new.
And
So
what ages are you working with?
we work from anywhere between kindergarten up to 12th grade. Sometimes we do pre-K classes, sometimes we do maybe advanced high school. So there's a wide range of young people we work with.
And you're working with schools all across New York City? How does a school become partnered with you?
Schools become partnered with us when they call us, when they refer to us, when we may say, hey, we are looking to expand in this district. And then we reach out to a principal or parent coordinator and tell them about us, and they want to bring us in. We also work with community-based organizations. They're the organizations that run after schools and spring and summer camp. And we do sessions with those students as well.
That sounds incredibly exciting. And so, with all of this work that you're doing, you were saying you've sort of developed the secret sauce or that magic formula for engaging kids in reading. I'm sure that we've got listeners out there who are just dying to know what that is. Are you able to share?
Well, first, let me say growth mindset. You're never quite there, but we are developing and building on that secret sauce. And really, it is just like creating the optimal environment for young people to want to be there, for them to want to feel engaged, for them to want to be engaged, for them to feel comfortable sharing their voice.
I love that. And that actually ties into something I had wanted to chat with you about today, which is the idea of creating learning ecosystems that help all children thrive. Because I think
Right.
for a very long time, we've had kind of a one size fits all approach. And I've been thinking a lot about the idea that children
Right.
are seeds who come to us, and they've already got roots in community, in culture, in family. And they're going to grow into different kinds of flowers. You're going to have a kid who's a
Right.
sunflower, a kid who's a carrot, a kid who is an onion. You never know what you're going to
Mm.
get, but they all need optimal growing conditions. And that's going to look different for each kid depending on what they come
Right.
in with. But how do we create that learning ecosystem that helps them thrive?
Right. You know what? To your point, I really wish that the Department of Education had smaller learning communities for all students, right? There are some environments where, maybe young people with IEP, they can be in smaller groups, but typically our average class is going to be about 20 to 25 students. And it becomes more difficult there to create. And I think teachers struggle with this to meet everyone's needs when there are so many different needs in one place. So what we aim to do is as much as possible, right? Young people vote on the book that they want to read together as a collective. And so the highest vote wins, which is it's democratic, but obviously that's the problem, right? In our world that we're facing, right? That means that someone's story is left out, right?
Right. You're not able
There's
to
power in
access all the
the
stories that people need.
exactly. So yeah, but along the way within the curriculum content, there are places for people to shine as an individual, right? And make choices about how they want to respond to a story, make choices about the artwork they'd like to do. There's just some general direction like container, but then we try to create a lot of different entry pathways and choices for them to explore and express their voice. So that's one of the things that we do. And then I would say, like, I think why we think team building and community building is important because even even as you're coming as you are, you're welcomed, right? And so you can welcome a variety of different voices to belong to a space, even though they may all have different needs. But universally for humans, I'm not saying that it's a rule, but universally humans need to connect and need to feel seen and need to feel like they have a place and purpose.
I love that. So it sounds like we've
Mhm.
got to offer choices and allow people different
Mhm.
opportunities to be able to express. We need to
Right.
create a safe space for connection where not only do you feel seen, but you have the opportunity to develop empathy and to see others. And
Right.
then within that, I would even add a safe place to make mistakes and fail and try again.
Agreed. Yes, that's a very important piece of it. And so within intrinsic motivation, there are a couple of tools. One tool is called perspective taking, where and it's we're giving terms to some things that are pretty intuitive, right? But perspective taking really is about asking someone, "Hey, what's your perspective on this? This is an assignment. How are you seeing it? Do you think that you're able to do it? Why did you choose this color versus that color?" That sort of thing. So you're kind of engaging people in their own process. And hey, if you made a mistake, you don't like this, okay, so what would you do to improve it?
I like that. So it's building in, it sounds like that idea of reflection that, was really big for a while and then kind of went to the wayside. And that ability to be able to self reflect and to take perspective makes a lot of sense because that's where you sort of process and go, oh, did this work? If it didn't, how do I fix it? And you can draw on the
Right.
skills and the other knowledge in the room as well to help you.
Right. We even have one program that's completely, it's called Bonnie's Rockets. It's a STEM program that's completely dedicated to the scientific process. And one of the essential questions is there a such thing as mistakes, right? And it seems like a weird connection, but one of the workshops is an improv dance workshop, right? So there's that process. So kids explore that process of like, is there a wrong decision, or is it just our decisions give us information so that we can craft the experience or the outcome that we're looking for?
Oh, that is so cool. So let's take a moment to unpack that. You're connecting literacy and STEM as part of your work. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we we have a full catalog of books that explore any from identity to social justice to STEM, social emotional learning, languages, right? So there's like we have a huge catalog that explores a lot of different topics. STEM is one of them.
I love that. So, walk us through that catalog for a moment in terms of, because now I'm really intrigued. STEM and literacy has been something that I'm very big into, as well as the idea of connecting books for empathy and building sort of that
Mhm.
social emotional learning and executive function. But it sounds like you all have done this work, that you've got pairings of books. And is it something that where the kids choose or the facilitator brings forward a number of choices for them out of the catalog? Like, how does this work?
So it works in a number of ways, right? We have the option. It depends on the openness of the school, right? And we really try to push for that. So the kids can start with like, we really want to explore this topic, and they'll say, hey, we have these subtopics, and they'll say, okay, well, you know we want to know more about the immigrant experience, and so then we'll have like a curated list of the books that speak to the immigrant experience, and the catalog is digital, so they'll see an image of the book cover and then a description of the book and examples of the essential questions that we ask in relationship to the themes of the book, and also samples of projects that they'll be doing if they do choose to do the book. So writing projects as well as art projects, and they get to choose. Sometimes you have a school that they're like, we have this educational goal and we really want, so we're like, okay, we still want the kids to have a choice. Why don't we work together to identify some books that work within that theme and then give the kids a choice between those books that you think really fit well into your curriculum for the year?
That sounds amazing. And how do you all go about sort of creating these books that are in the catalog with all the choices and things?
Yeah, so you know what? I have to admit that the catalog was there when I came and it was impressive, but we add to it every year. So we have kind of like a committee kind of meeting where folks will pick some books that they think are really interesting. And then we have a rubric where it's like, does it meet this? And then we'll talk and discuss like of the books that pass the rubric, which ones do we want to add to the catalog? And sometimes it will be based on, is this author close by? Can we fly this author in? Are they even available to do classroom visits? That's kind of the ultimate choice there. Like if the author can come in, whether it's virtually or in person, which is the best, now we can add this to our catalog.
So that actually brings up another piece of what you all do. Talk a little bit
Mhm.
about the connection to bringing real live authors connected to the kids.
Oh man. That's usually I can't believe I missed mentioning that. That's every kid's favorite session. That's every school's favorite session. You make this thing real and attainable. I know when I was a young person, I thought of book authors as these mythical creatures. They were not accessible at all.
Right.
But right, there's these mythical geniuses that do this. Like who does this? And so when we bring the author into a classroom and 80% of the time they look like the students, right? They look like the students, they may have come from their communities, like that just brings it all to life for them. And it creates that connection to the book. I can now talk to the person who wrote this book about why this character did that thing or their thoughts when creating this character. That's so exciting for young people.
So, in the last year, can you give us some examples of some of your favorite author visits?
So there are a few. Oh man. Okay. I'm gonna try to
I know I'm
get a
asking you
list
to
here.
pick favorite children, so that's why I did not put a limit on the
You know
numbers.
what? I'm trying to stay away from, like, mentioning the famous people, but Chelsea Clinton did an author visit with one of our schools, 2 of our schools, one in Harlem and one in Washington Heights, and she was just so down to earth and amazing with the kids and answered them at their level, and one of the things one of the students asked her was, like, "How did you deal with being picked on so much as a young girl?" You remember during the Clinton administration, they picked on her about how she looked almost every
Right.
second. Some troll had an
It was
opportunity. They were
so
talking about how
cruel.
this young girl, right, it was cruel. And she said, "My mom told me," let me get this right because I've quoted this a couple times because it touched me personally. She said, "My mom told me, take serious advice from serious people seriously and discard foolish advice from foolish people." That doesn't capture it. It was just it was lyrical the way she said it, but I was just like, yeah, like everything everyone says is not to be it's not to be internalized. It's not serious. It's not, it's
Yeah.
not worth actually it's not worth actually taking heed to it. So
And isn't that
that was
one of
one
the
of the
hardest things to learn in middle school or high school?
hardest thing to learn in adulthood.
True.
I've struggled. There's a reason it hit me hard. I've struggled with that in my life. And so just hearing her say that as someone who I knew was just so viscerally attacked, especially as a young person, it was just very powerful for me to hear that.
That's very cool. And I
Mm.
assume that if there is an author or illustrator who wants to partner with you, they can reach out and let you know they're available?
People often do. People often do. And because we do have a rubric of quality of work and meaningful message to young people. And so we often have those conversations where we're like, "Yes, of course, please. Well, we'd love to have you become part of the community." And sometimes we have to say, we don't think that this book is quite right for our students just yet.
And that's a totally fair thing. I mean, we talk a lot
Mhm.
about when we talk about books, we talk about not only what makes a good book, but I know Stevenson talked about what makes a book good for in a circumstance. And
Right.
you've got that whole definition of good for may be your purpose or what you're trying to accomplish with that book. And, providing windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors is certainly one purpose. Thank you, Dr. Rudine Sims
Mhm.
Bishop. But, it might also be STEM and STEAM, or we're really looking for a book that is going to help connect our students to whatever topic it is, whether it's a certain writing mode or immigration, as you said. And that book just may not fit
Right.
that. It may be a great book to read
Right.
aloud, on the outside, but it may not be what you need right then and there.
Right. Agreed. Yes.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Imagine a space where curiosity drives innovation, where empathy fuels collaboration, and where learning feels less like a task and more like an adventure. My message isn't about adding more to your plate, it's about changing how you see the plate entirely. I'm Dr. Diane Jackson Schnorr, and through the power of purposeful play, I equip leaders, educators, and organizations with the tools you need to unlock creative problem solving, deepen human connection, and build resistant ecosystems of empathy and innovation. Attendees will walk away not just inspired, but empowered, with immediately usable strategies to spark curiosity in teams, to lead with empathy, and to infuse learning into their everyday cultures. You'll learn how play isn't child's work, it's the secret weapon of the world's most effective leaders and change makers. This is not a feel-good talk that fades by Monday morning, it's a movement. A shift in how we engage people, solve problems, and lead meaningful change. My talks and workshops are shaped by decades of experience in education and a transformative message that connects across sectors. Whether your audience is corporate, educational, or nonprofit, they'll leave ready to rethink what's possible, both personally and professionally. Because when we learn and lead through play, we don't just change organizations, we change the world. Check it out at drdianeadventures.com. So I want to turn for just a moment and get to know Anmarie a little bit better. So you didn't wake up and just become executive director of Behind the Book. What were sort of the adventures in
Yeah,
learning that led you to this?
the adventures and learning that led me to this. I think pretty early on, I discovered that I didn't want to work just to make money. It wasn't motivating to me. I did a couple of in college internships. I wouldn't even say internships, but paid summer part-time things with banks, hospitals, and these, administrative things. I was always pretty well organized, overachiever. So I did well in those spaces, but they didn't make me happy. And I forgot. I actually don't even remember how I came across it was a summer role, and this was between my freshman and sophomore year or between my sophomore and junior year at the YWCA, and this was the McBurney Y. No, the McBurney YMCA. And I taught art classes to kids for the summer and just loved it and loved the creativity and loved that I can kind of infuse pieces of cultural pride, right, in the work, infuse, and this is before I even knew what it was. This was just sort of like intuition, or infuse kind of like opportunities for kids to feel good about themselves in the work. I just always I wanted to keep doing it. I wanted- I really just wanted to keep doing it, and I think, when you do things well, people are like, "Oh, I see something in you," and the path just grew in front of me and kept branching out, and here I am.
I love that. So you found your passion and you allowed your
Mhm,
passion and that desire to help and make a difference to
mhm,
lead on for you. And I think that that's something that we often neglect when we talk about career paths is that
right.
if you bring your heart and soul to something, then the other stuff opens up. You do the work. I mean, you were prepared. It's not like you were slacking, but
No, but I wasn't a person with, like, a five-year plan. That was never me, right? I was just a person who was kind of like, "This is challenging. This is contributing in a meaningful way, like, it has a purpose to it, and I have some enjoyment, I have some challenge here," and then just doors open because I did my best in whatever I was doing.
yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I've talked to kids about career paths before, and
Mhm.
mine is not a straight line 5-year plan either. It's one of those things where I talk
Right.
about often things wrap around in spirals and that road
Mhm.
unfolds and you'll find as you get towards another spot, you're like, oh, now I can see where all of these experiences led me to here.
Oh, 100%. I became an after school director and then a senior director of multiple after school programs. And, it was programs that were funded by city and government, and those can be pretty strenuous. And I got to a point where I was a little bit burned out. And I stopped for a while and I started doing community building circles with the Morningside Center and doing some capacity building work with Development Without Limits, right? And this was all contractual consultant work, not in a work home. And those 2 years, I really grew. And when I decided to go back in youth development, I had so much more to offer, right? Just in the way of capacity building of the staff under my net, right? And also communication and leadership had grew from doing those community building circles and building empathy. So yeah, the path can be very circular as well.
I love that. So I have just one more question for you for today, but I do want to
Mhm.
bring you back on because I love talking with you and I feel like this is one of those ways that we learn. But my question for today, and it's the one I like to end with everybody, is what currently
Mhm.
brings you hope? And that's
Gosh,
a
that's such
hard
a good
one right
question.
now.
That's a hard one for right now. I will say this, and it's connected. Well, one, like the sun and the sky and trees, right? So, like just internally, that makes me feel the joy of life and the gift of being on Earth. right? Without all the human complications, like it's just a really beautiful planet at its core, in the spots we haven't completely destroyed. But I will say this, one of the things that keeps me going in this work is that, like, our work with the psychology of reading, I think could have a really great place in the story of education, especially as folks shift over to the structure, the mechanics of reading, and understanding that that is something that is fundamental. I think that the hope I'm experiencing is just saying like, "Hey, don't forget us," because the kids have to want to open the book
And
in
they
order
go
to get
hand in
there.
hand. Absolutely.
And they go hand in hand, and I envision a future to where, like, our expertise as professionals in our organization really have an opportunity to make a large scale impact. And that feels scary to say for me, imagining that, but I see it so real, like it could happen. Yeah,
I think it
brings
will
me hope.
happen. And folks, if you want to support the work of Behind the Book and you want to learn more, I'm going to drop those links in the show notes because you really should be supporting what they're doing. It's powerful. And this is how we build readers. Anmarie, thank you for joining us today.
Dr. Diane, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. I really do enjoy speaking to you. You have a great spirit. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Adventures in Learning podcast with your host, Dr. Diane. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, download, and let us know what you think, and please tell a friend. If you want the full show notes and the pictures, please go to drdianeadventures.com. We look forward to you joining us on our next adventure.